Welcome to the mini-series Biology of Meaning. Episode 2. Holistic Health. What it is, what it isn't, and why there's so much confusion. When everything seems holistic, nothing is. Today, everything is called holistic. From tea, chakras, and constellations to private clinics. But holistic doesn't mean comprehensive, much less scientific. This video exists to clarify, demystify, and show why Pharaoh is not a fad, but an integrative health model with clinical and philosophical coherence. What is holistic health? In its original sense, holistic comes from holos, the whole. Holistic health means considering the person as a body-mind context unit, recognizing the interdependence between systems, and overcoming the organ-symptom reductionism. What is not holistic health? It is not anything goes or everything is connected, mixing techniques without a theoretical framework, explaining illnesses solely through isolated emotions, denying biology, clinical practice, or pathophysiology, or replacing science with beliefs. Much of today's holistic medicine lacks epistemology, fails to define what it integrates or how, and confuses subjective experience with clinical causality. The result? Pseudo-holism, not health. Models of holistic medicine and their limitations. There are multiple approaches called holistic, mind-body medicine, energy medicine, alternative therapies, and spiritual approaches. The common problem: they do not communicate with each other, lack shared clinical criteria, and do not define limits, indications, or risks. Being holistic does not guarantee rigor. Holistic approaches in nursing. Unlike other disciplines, nursing has developed formal holistic models with clear conceptual frameworks. Examples include Jean Watson, transpersonal caring; Martha Rogers, unitary human being; and Callista Roy, adaptation model. These models integrate body, emotion, environment, meaning, and the therapeutic relationship. However, even these models do not explain the biological meaning of the symptom and do not articulate in-depth clinical practice, conflict, and adaptation. Where does the biology of meaning fit in? The biology of meaning, BDM, goes a step further. It doesn't just look at the whole picture, it asks, what is the purpose of this symptom? It recognizes a biological, adaptive purpose. It integrates physiology, conflict, history, and context. The symptom is not a mistake, it is an intelligent response of the organism. What makes Pharaoh different? The Pharaoh model is not holistic in the vague sense. It is structured and integrative. It explicitly integrates Jung, psychic meaning; Hamer, biological meaning; Wilbur, levels of consciousness and quadrants; traditional Chinese medicine and Taoism, energetic and temporal coherence. It also draws on Engel and the philosophical current of humanism for its clinical and contextual connection. Pharaoh defines what it integrates, how it integrates it, why, and with what clinical limits. That is true integrative health. Holism, integration, and fundamentalism are not the same thing. Fundamentalism is an indiscriminate mixture. Pharaoh does not mix. Pharaoh articulates. Fundamental clarification. Holistic is not integrative. Holistic health, serious clinical practice, recognizes the unity of body, mind, and environment, can coexist with the biomedical model, is based on clinical practice, semiology, and physiology, does not include pendulums, magnets, numerology, astrology, birth charts, or divinatory practices. That is not clinical holism, it is non-medical spiritualism. The common error: integralism. What abounds today is not integration but rather therapeutic integralism, that is, adding things together without framework, hierarchy, or clinical indication. This generates confusion, loss of credibility, risk to patients, and editorial rejection. Pharaoh explicitly distances itself from this. Tarot, a very clear clarification. The tarot is not used in integrative health as a diagnosis, a causal tool, or an explanation of illness. It can be used with very specific conditions for symbolic projective purposes, only with individuals trained in Jung, as a narrative opening device, never as truth, but as a psychic image equivalent to free association, active imagination, and work with archetypes. Jung was the only one who approached it in this way and did not include it as a clinical health method, but rather as a symbolic psychological one. Therefore, it is not the core of Pharaoh. It does not belong to the integrative health model. It can only appear as a complementary resource outside of the clinical setting and with clear boundaries. Pharaoh is ethical and therefore prudent. Holistic is not esoteric. Integrating is not mixing. And caring for health requires method, limits, and responsibility. In the next episode, we will see what integrative health really is, what models exist, which ones are clinically valid, and why Pharaoh belongs to this family but not to all of them. Pharaoh summary: Pharaoh is not naive holism. The Pharaoh model is not alternative. Pharaoh is not fundamentalism. The Pharaoh model with its integral Pharaoh method is integrative, clinical, symbolic with limits, biological with meaning, ethical and with epistemological foundations based on philosophy and clinical practice that can be confirmed or refuted in the field. In other words, it can be investigated. Pharaoh learning: not everything called holistic integrates, and not everything that integrates makes clinical sense. Educate yourself with science and awareness, because in health, knowledge is not neutral. It is vital.